If you care about living in Chicago with less dependency on a car, but also care about how real estate actually behaves, Noble Square is a neighborhood you should be paying attention to right now. What the market visuals are showing us is a very specific kind of balance. Homes are still going under contract quickly. Listings that are priced and positioned correctly are meeting the market with very little friction. And at the same time, inventory remains tight, enough that sellers continue to hold leverage. Yet, and this is important for urban buyers, there are moments of opportunity when certain listings linger just a little bit longer, especially in the missing middle category, creating openings for buyers who value walkability, transit, access, and everyday livability over sheer square footage. That combination is rare. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through what's happening in Noble Square Market at a high level. Then I'll show you real buyer-friendly and seller-friendly properties from the MLS. And finally, I'm going to map out those properties, so you can actually see the lifestyle along with attractions and culture and grocery. So you can actually see walking to essentials, biking through the neighborhood to see how easily transit connects you to the rest of the city. This isn't about hype or timing the market. It's about understanding how an urban neighborhood functions when demand is being driven by lifestyle, not just price. It's very key what I said in that opening. Words ring hollow when you don't have those visuals. So, as I mentioned in that video, I'm going to be first talking about the Noble Square market. And actually, I do market updates on a lot of the popular urbanism neighborhoods. And I have a quick video I want to show you that actually has the evidence that backs my claims in that video you just watched, the actual visuals. So let's go ahead and play that. I'm going to minimize myself. If you're waiting for prices to fall in Noble Square, the data says that the window never really opened. I'm AD, a Chicago urbanism realtor with over 13 years of experience helping buyers, sellers, and investors with residential real estate. And looking at the December MLS data just before the New Year's release, 2-bedroom, 2-bath resale condos in Noble Square remained extremely tight. Year over year, median prices are slightly lower than December 2024, but demand hasn't disappeared. Homes are still going under contract in under a week, closing right at list price. Month supply is sitting well below 1 month, which keeps sellers firmly in control despite the small price dip. New listings remain limited, so buyers aren't seeing relief through inventory. Most importantly, how do you feel, good folks, about the Noble Square market? Sound off and comment below. A couple of things there that I mentioned. Of course, I'm going to show you the sales pricing. I mean, a lot of these neighborhoods, you're going to see a reoccurring theme as I do these. These are urbanism, my urbanism series, where I'm literally going to be going through each neighborhood, as many as I can, as you good folks demand from me. I want to be providing value for you. I'll get to the sales price, the median sales price, but there's a couple things that I mentioned in there. 1 week, properties are going from list to contract. That is the metric when properties, the buyer and the seller go under. You don't want to really look at overall market times. It's a little skewed because obviously not everyone's paying cash. You may have financing, so people may take longer. Some people may take 30 days. Some people may take 45 days. So that list of contract is a really good indicator of demand. 1 week. And homes are eventually selling for 100% of the list price. Those are two really key things here. So from that, why is, well, before I get into that, let me show you just, I'm sure many of you are curious. So right here, this is the 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I really focus on 2-bedroom, 2-bath. That's a really good entry point for your relocation, urban buyers, your first-time buyers. A lot of first-time buyers, they're getting their first condo, $533,000. So depending on where you good folks are watching this video, that could be a single-family home. But this is living in the city. You have all the creature comforts, and there's a cost associated with that. It's a cost benefit analysis. 533,750. That is really common in popular neighborhoods within the Westtown community. Noble Square is the neighborhood. Westtown is a community within that Westtown community. There's 77 communities, like Wicker Park is another one. I'll be talking about East Village. I'll be talking about Ukrainian Village. And a lot of these have a 5 in front of it. That is how the market is going. There is no crash, as you've seen. So this is versus if I add, I'm going to add right here. As you can see, this is from last year, so year over year. It's interesting. You see that really, really steep climb, and things are hopefully leveling out. But as you've seen in the news, many of you have seen, we've had the lowest interest rates at the start of this year. Once Powell leaves, I believe his term, the Fed chair, is in March. We could see continuing. Now, there's a lot of volatility on the geopolitical arena. That's out of my domain. But if rates keep going down, what's going to happen to home prices? More demand. People that were on the sidelines are going to coming. They're off the sidelines and coming and getting in the ball game. That's going to cause naturally home prices to keep going up. So now would be the time if you've been considering it, if you've been on that sideline. So a lot of good people, they ask me, oh, by the way, if you don't know me, I'm AD. You can see my name there in the corner. I'm a licensed real estate broker. And through my relocation with AD, I have an urbanism series. As you can see up there in the corner, upper corner, Chicago Urbanism, where I talk about the Holy Trinity, biking, walking, and transit, and how that affects you, the potential relocation buyer, or you're possibly moving on up, right? Maybe to the east side, and not in a deluxe apartment. You would probably be moving up, your first time seller, maybe moving to the burbs, or you're moving in between neighborhoods. I help both folks. I'm happy, love my job, buying and selling real estate. But that's me, really quick intro on that. So you see here, this particular neighborhood is very interesting. That's a little reduction, nothing to really be worried about. We're also entering kind of a lull before the Super Bowl. I anticipate, right, particularly those interest rates stay or continue downward pressure. You got to look at yields, folks. Look at the 10-year yield. And if that spread between interest rates and the 10-year yield keeps moving together versus being a little further apart, and that yield goes down, then mortgage rates will follow lockstep. So that's really what you got to do, because as we know, the mortgage rates is that is any reduction by the Fed. That is the Fed funds rate between banks. That's not the actual interest rate. There's always a lag. A lot of those decreases, let's say it's 25 basis points, is already baked in. If there's a surprise, they anticipate 25 and it goes 50, that's another story. A lot of those rates are baked in. And of course, inflation. It's all about keeping inflation in check. So let's see. I don't have a crystal ball. But that is the home rates. Now, so buyers, what can you do? So if you're considering possibly, you see right here, the 2-bedroom, 1-bath, there is a market. A lot of first-time buyers, I don't like to say settle, but they compromise, and they don't necessarily need that second bathroom, which could escalate the pricing. So you can see here in Noble, $327,000. I mean, that's $200,000 difference. Now, again, this is median pricing for 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Very, very interesting. Now, of course, the bad news here, you remove that was 327. If you add in, I want to make sure I have the right one, only two listings were in December, and you see the trending even at the high point. That's about 9 listings. That is nothing. They're just swiped up super quick. And to get a little further understanding of, there are other neighborhoods around Noble Square. This is Noble Square. If you have your heart set on Noble Square, of course, I have ways of strategies reaching out to homeowners that have 2-bedroom, 1-baths. But that's one of those things where you have to act fast. If that's what you want to do, and you're looking at your monthly payment, maybe connecting with one of my lender partners, or if you have your own lender, either way, it's your choice. That you're looking at what you can afford, and you may have to consider that 2 bedroom, 1 bath versus the 2 and 2, or look in another neighborhood. So, but speaking of that activity, of there just hasn't been a lot of inventory. I'm going to let's remove that, and let's add to the stage. Bingo. So this here is the month supply. This is the metric, right? In a normal market, of a seller market is 5 months. So that 0.7, just a kind of quick education, there would be 5 active listings for every sold property. So 5 months of monthly supply. In an extreme situation, possibly 3 listings for every 1 sold. Well, we're at 0.7 over 1. I mean, there's just nothing. So you can see that number typically is like 5, and again in extreme it's right around 3. You can't find, in a lot of these popular neighborhoods, good folks, you can't find anything greater than like almost 1. Like I believe Andersonville is like maybe 0.6. South Loop, which does have a lot of investor concentration, I want to say that was the last. I'm going to be doing that report fairly soon for January. Maybe that's 3, and that's skewing the buyers almost when it's technically sellers. So you understand that where we're at with this extreme shortage. So with those rates going down, we're hoping that can unlock some sellers where maybe, of course, if they have an under 3% rate, they're not going to be selling their place, more than likely. But if they had a 4 or 5 and they see a 6, where we're at now interest rate wise, for their move up home or the quote unquote forever home, then maybe that can open up some inventory. And so you good folks who are first time buyers can get the move up buyers home. But that's where kind of everything is kind of settling. So it just could really explode with those rates going down. That's why act now. You should really act now and reach out to me, and I'll provide some information for you as we go in this video. So I thought that was very interesting. 0.7 is just wow. So let's remove. I'm going to remove me. So that is the the market, the condo market. So as I said in the intro video, so I want to highlight a buyer-centric property and a seller-centric property. This is going to, again, kind of keep consistency so you know what to expect in all of my videos on the neighborhoods. I'm going to be doing this. So I'm going to be sharing my screen, and let's go through a couple of, I did find a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for you to see. It is above that median price. So there's not very many. So what I'm going to do, I am going to share my screen, and let's go. Okay. Drop me here. So this is the MLS, right? So if you would work with me, we have a consultation. I tap you directly into the MLS, real-time updates, really depending on what your time horizon is. Excuse me. But I tap you right in here. So I found 3 properties that I'd like for us to look at. Okay. So let's look at this Haddon. Haddon is right off of Ashland in this Noble Square. And I'm going to map all these 3. That's in the final segment where I kind of give you a feel of the neighborhood. We're going to do that in a second. But 370, okay, that's not bad. This is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in 5 days. Lightning fast. Let's take a look at some of these photos. Nice little, I believe it's about a 100-year-old building. Excuse me, well, that's actually a good question. Let's see how old it is. So year built unknown. Yeah, it's probably 80 to 100 years year old building. You got the mailboxes usually in the lobby. Now, this is your, I guess it would be typically a traditional loft finished, right? Not the brick, where you do have the exposed. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally had a loft. Mine was a condo loft with both rooms. I had a two-bedroom going all the way up to the ceiling. So it was completely sealed in. That's what I preferred. So basically, like a traditional condo, but the 14-foot ceilings. So it was a combination of best of both worlds, condo loft with brick exposure. This doesn't have the brick exposure, but again, so if you've got guests over, you're trying to sleep, or you don't want to hear any noise. You got buddies hanging out in the living area. You're gonna hear stuff. So there are companies that put in. If you noticed up there by the vent, they'll put block. They'll put glass block in there. That's an option. Decorative, and that will seal in the noise. Or you could hire someone to, but then that's what's the point. That kind of ruins the character of the property. So obviously that the person who bought this didn't mind. So pretty basic items in here for 370 living in a dynamic neighborhood. You're going to see it's very close to transit. Not bad, right? So that's 370. Now let's look at the two bedroom. Okay. Only 2 days. Look at these times. You have to be ready to go. You have to get all your ducks in a row. Now, this property at 425, this is the two bedroom, two bath. So the good news is this is a whole, what, 108,000 or so, less than the median price. That's the good news, right? I'm not going to necessarily say bad news. This construction here. So if we look at the photos, it has a brick exterior. This looks to be some type of block exterior. And the thing with block, that has to be sealed. A sealant has to be applied, sometimes even every 8 years, but 10 to 12 years, 12 probably being the most. And if you notice right here, 10 years ago, they seem to be on it. No units currently rented, so you can rent one. They've got some roof work. This is very, very important. This is what your agent should be researching. So the block building was sealed 10 years ago. Roof work was done. So it's ready to go. And these type of properties are not going to have a lot of 11K in reserves. I don't know how many. Let's see how many units. It's only 4 units. That's that trade-off, right? You pay 165. So if you see here, I'm going to highlight that, which is very, very low. Most people at the 300-400. I mean, with my two bedroom, I was at, before I sold it, I was over five. I think it was 575 a month. But the trade-off is any type of work is going to require a special assessment, probably a one-time fee that all the owners will contribute. It's a proportional, depending on percent ownership. That's how the condo, and of course, in our consultation, I'll go through all this. But that's why it's good. So it's sold for 100%. Obviously, the buyer did the due diligence with this work being done. But that's what you have to kind of be cognizant of versus a full masonry brick building, which, structurally might be in a better condition. I know people have really bad opinions. People hear, oh, stay away from block or split block. That's not necessarily the case as long as it's been maintained properly. It's all about maintenance. So 425, not a bad deal. Now, just for, S and giggles, I included this 808 Greenview 547. As you look at these photos, just a gorgeous. This isn't a penthouse. You think it's a penthouse, but obviously you can see here, it's a upgrade with the TV integrated in here. 547. Wow. You think you get at least a third bedroom here, but obviously everything is top of the line. Parking is included with all these properties. You're going to get a parking spot. That's usually not an issue. So wow, it looks fantastic. Nice countertops, beautiful. But do you get what you pay for? So as you see, a little bit longer market time, but it went very close to list. So it's that's kind of that trade-off. You're going to see why Noble Square in a couple of minutes here, why it is so attractive and it can command. So from a seller perspective, wow, that's amazing, right? Those first two were kind of those buyer centric. Here is for the sellers, and I believe they paid. Let's see, I think they paid about four. I can tell you right now, like $4.99. I think the last. Okay, 17, 435, and for 100 and what is that? $112,000 increase. Now, not all of that is the equity amount is going to be obviously you got to take out the mortgage balance. So you kind of figure their mortgage balance on a 435. It was probably in the 350s, 360s. Probably didn't have pay down that much of their interest in only 8 years. You're still clearing well north of 100,000 to be able to apply to your new home. So obviously it's that's why it's an asset, right? That's why home buying, you look at that price, it's an asset, whether you're out in the suburbs or in the city. So what is one of the reasons? Obviously the market, right? It's lack of inventory. It's a seller-centric market. But let's talk about the neighborhood. And before we do that, I go back over here, stop sharing. Okay. Before we do that, let me just give you some ways to contact me. Before we talk about the actual neighborhood, I've got a map that I've created for you. I think you guys will find value with that. Let me quickly show you a couple of ways to, you can see right here. Some people were here, you're watching me on YouTube. Maybe you just want little nuggets. You don't want the 25, 30-minute videos. You don't have the time. I do short form content. A lot of times I'm taking these clips from YouTube and I am making a mini up to a minute. I also do other content related to urbanism. That's where you can follow me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Some select market updates are on my YouTube shorts. So on this relocation with AD, that is my channel. As you're watching it here, you can go to my shorts page on my channel and watch some of the market updates. Again, people digest things in different ways. Maybe you're taking the train, you just moved, you're renting, you're thinking about buying. You want to watch something really quick on the train, taking the blue line, go to Chicago_urbanism.ad. Again, on those social media, pick your preference and you can watch some of my short content. So now let's go here. You see at the bottom, where are you guys all from? I'm kind of curious. If you come into Chicago, you're thinking about Chicago, you have questions, obviously you can put them in the comments. I'd love to know where you're all from and if you're thinking about moving to an urban area. And of course, finally, subscribe to the channel here, right? Have to do that. I prefer you to subscribe, but I actually prefer you just keep watching the whole video. It's that retention. The algorithm gods love that retention. So thank you for being here. If you're watching 10 seconds, you're watching 10 minutes, right? I like you both, but I like both people. But if you go in the search bar, relocation with AD, relocation with AD. So it's at relocation with AD on YouTube. And hide that. Let's go. I want to, up in the corner, if you, and this, you could be 6-7 months out. You're a relocation urban buyer coming here to Chicago. You're a first-time seller. You've got questions either way. You don't, or you're both. My real estate consultation, I have a Google scheduler. So if you go up in that corner, upper corner, and if you're watching on the big TV, YouTube, just that's a QR code. And if you need the link, I'm going to have it in the comments after this video is recorded. Please be patient. I will have it in the comments. I will pin it. So that's the best way. You can contact me through that. You can click on there So if you happen to be watching on your mobile phone, just wait for the comments. Very, very simple. And reach out to me. It's a simple conversation. I would love to help. Okay. So that's kind of the little mini ad. So why not? I'm going to keep that up there. Let's look at the neighborhood, right? So I'm going to share my screen. Let's make sure you guys can see this properly. Boom. Okay. Here is the map. Map of Noble Square within the Westtown community. So you can see over on the eastern portion, you have the Kennedy, you have Division, which is 1200. On the southern portion, you have Chicago, which is 800 north, 1200 north. What hugging Kennedy is on the east, and Ashland to your west. So if you remember, I had these properties. I have the properties here, 1521, 927, 808. So why don't we, while those things are up, I'm going to show you, if you're curious, literally this hat would be perfect for the Division. That is the Blue Line transit stop. That's a subway. And I'll show you step by step. Boom. Let me make sure that's showing up there. Bingo. Awesome. 919 feet. So in a way, right? And that was only 370. So you can get that 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You have that proximity because typically, right, you're closer to transit, home prices escalate. But this is a great value. You have it 4 minutes away. Can't beat that. So I'm going to unclick that. So that happens to be Haddon. Now, what about the 927, right? The 927 mobile, this was the 425 property. Only 425,000. It had the block construction, brick exterior, but obviously the maintenance was done properly, so it's a great value. Where would you go? So you wouldn't necessarily go to the Division. There's another stop here, and I'm going to show you. Let's go transit. So I got 2 transit stops, right? The Division stop in Chicago. Chicago is along this blue line. And if you go here and click step by step. Now remember, this is, as you can see here, I have to do the disclaimer here. This is estimated. So you should obviously do your own due diligence, but Google is great for that. 10 minutes. Routinely, 75, 80% of the time, 10 minutes is nothing. That's 100%. But 75, 80% of my time here, year over year, I'm walking 20 to 25 minutes, no problem at all. This is something that you're going to have to get used to. I'm not saying that you have to walk that everywhere, but that's what living in the city. That's that when you do your kind of make your pro and con list, you want to jump in a car for every single thing. That's your prerogative. But that's the advantage, the urbanism, living in an urban center. You walk everywhere. You're not necessarily going to one trip. Maybe you're going to Costco. I have a car. You have a car. You're making that Costco trip maybe, and you need that. You need a car for that. But typically for the groceries, for the transit, you're doing it every day, getting little 1 and 2 and 3 items. 10 minutes, can't beat that. You're going down Milwaukee. You're taking the Chicago stop, okay? So I'm going to unclick that. And then finally, the luxury condo that was just under 550, you're also going to take the Chicago. Oh, well, so actually, that is Mariano's. That's the next one. My apologies. There we go. Chicago, right? And approximate distance is 11 minutes. Not bad at all. You're just shooting down here. Now, it's a little bit, excuse me, I have to warn you, obviously, with Milwaukee, you are going to have, in most of that, there will be a protected bike lane. Chicago, you will have walking.
it's just going to be a lot more traffic. So you just got to be alert, but you're obviously going to have a sidewalk. The protected bike lane, Milwaukee and Augusta, for the bikers out there, those are where you're going to have that. And when I mean PBLs, I actually mean that acronym, protected bike lanes, concrete. I'm going to have a future video. I'm not going to really get too much into that. I have a future video on that kind of quote unquote war between the car people and the pro bikers. And there's really a battle going on these protected bike lanes. It's very interesting. So that should be an interesting video. If you happen to be a biker, I'm not personally a biker. I'm a walker and I have a car, but you may have a car and you bike. So that's important to you. You're going to cut through, for biking, you're going to cut through, see this cursor, Augusta, to get through the neighborhood. There is PBLs on a large, I believe, the whole stretch of Noble Square and along Milwaukee. Okay, so what other things are interesting here? And going to take that off. All right. So how about a little culture? The Polish Museum of America. Boom. Right here. Right here. So if you lived at that 927 Noble, you'd have access to the transit. You have the park, as you can see, just south. The home is right here. You can see right here where the cursor's at. Eckert Park, great park. If you're doing intramurals and stuff, you want to play softball. I believe they have volleyball. They have so many intramural stuff there. You can hang out, make friends there. And you have the Polish Museum for culture, right? Polish population of Chicago is the largest outside of Warsaw, if you didn't know that. So a wonderful, wonderful community. And you just so happen to have the Polish Museum there. So that's the Polish Museum. You also have, as I mentioned here, you have the park, right? Park is right over here. I mentioned transit. You got to eat, right? So, okay. Boom. Jewel and Mariano's are whatever your local, like I know HEB is big in Texas. Those are the kind of main grocery stores. I would say between the two, maybe Mariano's is slightly more elevated. And then, of course, you have the Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. These are the most, these three would be the most prevalent. Now, the Jewel and the Target technically are up in Wicker Park. You see where my cursor is at? And the Target is the second cursor. So technically, this Mariano's, if you go, you have to go all the way over here. See my cursor way west, just west of Damon. That's technically, you're now into the East Village and Ukrainian Village borders, right? So technically in Noble Square, you're not necessarily going to have. Now you're going to obviously have bodegas, which we call just convenience stores, but those are the three grocery stores. And if you're curious, like I did with there, Mariano's, right? How far, if you lived on the southern portion of Noble Square, you have a 20-minute walk. It'd make more sense depending living up north and being closer to that Jewel and the Target. But if you lived anywhere on this western portion, and if you decide to go just a little bit west, it's not that bad. So, you could come off of the train and go over to Mariano's, grab a couple of items, and do what I do: have a couple of drinks with your favorite bartender, and then walk home. Don't drive, walk home. So, talked about culture, talked about transit, talked about grocery. I'm going to unclick that. Of course, I didn't get these chins by not eating. How about food? How about food? So, what I have on here, I'm going to unclick that. I got 4 items here. So, you got to have a Thai. I mean, there's a Thai on every street, but I personally have had Noble Thai. Excellent. Something quick, something relatively nutritious. And if you happen to be vegetarian, obviously they got many of vegetarians. So you have Noble Thai, El Barco Marisco. Just think of this as like a regional Mexican seafood. I don't know exactly where. That's what the Marisco is, the seafood place. So you get authentic, regional in Mexico, not just Mexican food, but like regional. Can't go wrong with that. I've been there too. Frontier is if you want to try something a little bit more exotic. Alligator. I think they've got like rattlesnake. They got some interesting stuff. I think alligator tastes like chicken. I've had it a couple of times, like, fried. Everything good is fried, right? And last but not least, Rudy's Ramen, which I've not been to, but I want to go. I love ramen. If you're a big ramen person, so point I'm trying to get to in Noble Square, just about any type of food throughout the world is there. So you've got a little bit of everything. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. That is kind of encompasses. I mean, I could probably talk for 2 hours on Noble Square. I love Noble Square. I'm not necessarily in there. I'm in the neighboring uh, East Village a lot, but I'm all throughout. I lived in Wicker Park, was just northwest of Noble Square for 16, 17 years. So very familiar with the West Town community. But yeah, you probably going to have a car, but let's move beyond the car. You can walk, you can bike, you can take transit. The good news is you have garage parking, right? You're going to purchase a property, or there's for renters too. But if you're a relocation buyer, you have the car, you're worried what I'm going to do with it, you can have a parking space, you can get a value condo, and then you can experience the lifestyle of living, walking, biking, using transit of the Noble Square neighborhood. Any questions at all, please reach out. Again, I'm AD, an urbanism realtor, 13 years of experience helping buyers, sellers, and investors. This has been Noble Square Urbanism. Can't wait to see all of you on the next video. Have a wonderful day.